We say good morning to Dan Petrella with the State Journal-Register, one of the reporters. What's your responsibilities, Dan? You've been in studio before. Remind everybody what your responsibilities.
Yes. My title is suburban reporter, so I cover a lot of municipal government and school stories and other stuff in some of the communities surrounding Springfield. I'm also, I think Bernie Schoenberg actually once referred to me as sort of a utility infielder. I fill in a lot of other spots. I do some editing on the weekends sometimes, and then also Thursday and Friday mornings I'm in here in the newsroom at 6 a.m. as part of a two-person rotation to cover breaking news in the mornings, and Chris Detro covers that Monday through Wednesday, and he's, I think, the longest tenured reporter on staff, and I'm one of the newest, so it's kind of an interesting split there. But
remind everybody where you're from. Born and raised where?
Born and raised in Lombard, up in the Chicago suburbs. Live in Decatur now, and I'm a U of I grad.
Now, let's talk about the city of Springfield for a moment, and an issue that you wrote about the other day, but the relationship, at least as far as water is concerned, about who owes who what, is not very good between Chatham and the city of Springfield, is it?
That's true. No, they, it's been about a year now since the new plant that Chatham built with New Berlin out there near Rochester came online and started pumping water to folks, and Chatham pulled out of the contract that it had with CWLP for water when they did that, and they haven't been able to come to terms on, settling that contract. Chatham's contract originally would have expired in December of this year.
Yes.
Back in 2010, they gave 3 years' notice in the summer that they would stop taking water, so that their obligation stops as of July 31st of this year, but they actually stopped getting water last May. So, when I talked to CWLP, they said that what Chatham has offered is far off from what they would like to see, so they haven't really had talks, from what I understand, for a few months now, and it's kind of still an unsettled issue and a lot of contention on both sides.
I suspect, Dan, and we don't know this for a fact, you certainly are closest story than any of us are on the radio side, but I think both sides probably now realize this thing's probably going to end up in court somewhere. I mean, they won't come out and say it, but the tea leaves certainly are pointing that direction.
They would like to avoid that, but it's hard to see without things kind of moving forward on a face-to-face basis where else it might go, I guess. One
of the other things you work on a lot are schools and school consolidations. It's for some communities, they don't even want to hear that word, consolidations, but when it comes to survival, they have to look at it, do they not?
It's a tough issue. I know there's that old saying that the hardest animal to kill is the school mascot.
Good call.
And, Porta and AC Central up north of us here in Springfield have been talking for a while now, and they formed a committee to study the issue. It's called a Committee of 10. There's 5 people from each side, and they're hoping to get a plan together by September or so and get it on the ballot for the March primaries. Porta has kind of been more on board than at least the school board has been in AC Central. They elected a new majority to the board back in April who campaigned against the idea. So, but the committee is independent and is moving forward with its
Does the community of Virginia, they just stand alone and everybody looks at them, they look around, and I guess that begs the question, how do they survive out there? Because the school stays open. They've looked at some other schools. They looked at AC Central, and AC Central looked at them. But those folks out there, Virginia wants to stand alone, evidently, for a while.
For the time being, yeah. They're facing a lot of the same financial pressures that a lot of other districts are, but they got a state construction grant finally that came through to renovate their school that I think is about 100 years old, and they're getting underway on that. And at least for now, they're on their own, and down in Montgomery and Christian counties, the Panhandle School District, Lincolnwood, and Morrisonville are still in talks. They're also hoping to get something on the ballot by next spring.
What happened to Nokomis? They were part of it for a while. Are Nokomis kind of odd man out at the moment?
Yes, the folks in Panhandle and Morrisonville weren't too keen on the idea of sending their students to high school over in Nokomis, and so they decided to kind of go it alone, and Nokomis is now sort of waiting to see what's going to happen with state funding and sort of starting to have some informal discussions with Pana to see whether there might be some interest there in a consolidation.
Dan, you think most of this is because of the financial situation, or do they look and say, if we consolidate, we can improve our curricula, we can improve our course offerings, we can expand, offer much more than we're offering now? What do you think's wagging the dog here?
It's a little bit of both. when these schools get down to being really small, and some of these rural communities are declining in population and student enrollment, it's hard to offer a wide variety of classes when there are so few students to enroll in them. So sometimes one district will have a really good program in one area, and another district will have a really good program in another area. And if they join forces, then they can open those up to all sorts of students at both districts. So, but with the state continuing to cut funding every year, it's also a consideration that they're having to do more with less, and maybe looking for some streamlining or some efficiencies that they can gain.
The fact you live in Decatur, interesting contrast, even though it's not necessarily in the circulation area. They got their own paper, own media over there. What's going on in Decatur? I mean, a lot of old-timers like myself remember when they had 4 high schools over there. Now they're down to 2. I've even heard that they may go down to 1 high school, believe it or not, in Decatur in the foreseeable future. What's going on over there?
Well, I don't see that happening in the immediate future.
Okay.
They're actually in the middle of renovating both of the high
schools.
Both
MacArthur and Eisenhower? Okay.
And I should say, for interest, full disclosure, my wife works for the school district over there in Decatur.
So you've got inside information,
well,
Dan.
not super inside. She's fairly new, but she's the librarian at MacArthur High School.
Okay, very good.
And they're shuffling kids around from school to school as they're redoing Eisenhower right now, and then starting, I believe, in next winter, they'll get over to MacArthur and start doing some construction there. So,
is there and not athletically, is there a competition? You sense competition between Decatur and Springfield? Between the communities?
Not too much. I think people are pretty proud of their individual communities. I think that there are a lot of people in Decatur who come over here for work. I see a lot of other people heading the same way
Absolutely.
on the highway.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of commercially a lot of businesses and stuff here that maybe aren't in Decatur. But I think if there's a rivalry, it's probably pretty friendly.
I think it may have been more intense 30, 40 years ago than this. I think now they kind of think we're all in the same boat together. We've all got to survive. I think we all have one maybe common group of people that we look at, and that's maybe Chicago, and saying the rest of us downstate south of 80 need to band together. What are you working on right now for the future? Are you working on something right now that's going to be down the line a little bit?
Well, I was working on the consolidation issue and sort of just checking in on where things are with the Ball-Chatham School District, which is one of my major coverage areas for our progress editions. I believe the first one comes out sometime soon. My stories will be in the one that comes out in June, and those are sort of an overview of lots of different issues in the area and where they stand, and kind of an opportunity to every year take a look at where we stand as a community. And
as far as community or as far as schools are concerned?
The 2 stories that I did happen to be related to schools, but it's overarching the whole community, business, all sorts of different stuff.
Do people in Chatham, Glenwood High School, and are they to the point they'd love to see maybe growth slow a little bit, or does that look like they're just going to continue to expand and expand and expand on there?
Well, I know there's a new subdivision in the works near the high school that's going to eventually be about 97 single-family homes. Wow. And thanks to the referendum that they passed in the fall, they feel that they're pretty well situated once they get those projects done. They're expanding for the schools, that they'll be ready to take in that growth. And speaking with the superintendent there, Carrie Ruby now, I just found out was recently married and changed her last name. She feels that growth, and I think the board does too, is part of their lifeblood and what keeps them successful, and an indication that they're still doing a good job despite the challenges of offering a lot of great classes and extracurricular programs that keep bringing people in.
And where's the best pizza restaurant in Lombard? Don't tell me. Go ahead.
No, well, it's actually in Villa Park, which is the next town over, but my family always gets it from a place called Dominic's. We used to have a place called Venutis right by our house, but they moved kind of out to...
So you're not into Giordano's or some of those places?
Oh, well, I think my favorite deep dish is Lou Malnati's.
I agree.
But they're over in Elmhurst is the closest one.
I love Lou Malnati's. Dan Petrella, thanks for stopping by.
Nice to see you again.
Always
Thanks.
good to see you, buddy. Thanks.